All right. So welcome everybody, and we're here on ACIM Gather for a Course in Miracles, and we're studying the beautiful manual for teachers, and we've been moving right along. Boy, we're whipping through this really fast. I think last week we got through 2 paragraphs of the section that we're working on. So, what the heck, 2 paragraphs. And then this week, maybe we can finish this section. So we are in a section called How Are Healing and Atonement Related? And I'm going to go ahead and put this into the room. Those of you who are watching, this is A Course in Miracles as published by the Foundation for Inner Peace. And this website, acim.org, is where you can get the entire course online. You can copy and paste. You can, I'm not in there, but you can copy this and paste it into your messages. I use this all the time. This is like my main go-to of A Course in Miracles, although I do have, as you can see behind me, several different versions of A Course in Miracles. I even have it in Spanish because I thought it'd help me to learn to speak Spanish if I could read it, the Course in Miracles in it, because I think I know the Course in Miracles well. I'm fool myself again. Anyway, but I do have it, so I'll keep trying. I think, I asked the Holy Spirit, do you want me to learn how to speak Spanish? Because, so many people speak in Spanish and, they really would like to hear about the course. And I said, if you want me to, just help me out. Give me a way to do it that I'll be happy and love it. And so far that hasn't happened. So, so I have to get somebody like Zilma who speaks Spanish, her language of origin, and let her interpret for me, I guess. But anyway, we are here on How Are Healing and Atonement Related?
Len?
Yes.
I wanted to say, if you want to speak Spanish, play my video, the one I play in Bogota. I speak one sentence in English, and the translator gives you one sentence in Spanish, and it's all on the Course in Miracles. You can play it in the room. It's the fastest way to learn Spanish.
Yeah. Well, have you learned Spanish since you've been doing it?
Yeah. Well, I took Spanish in high school.
Yeah, I did too. I took high school in high school, college.
Yeah.
I've gone through what do you call them? Every program you can think of. My little brain just doesn't want to speak Spanish. It'll love to speak French, but it doesn't want to speak Spanish. I don't know why.
Okay.
I think because it's real fast. They talk real fast, and I talk real slow.
That's the reason you listen to this. She speaks very slowly. Everything's translated slowly.
You know what, Dove? I'm going to make a playlist on our YouTube channel with those. You send me the link where they're at, and I'll make a
absolutely,
so
absolutely. I'll send it to you.
Because I can do that with a YouTube channel. I feel like I'm an ad for YouTube, but I'm just loving this, this communication, and I love sharing the course. So here we are. We're in How Are Healing and Atonement Related? And last week we read the first couple of paragraphs. In the very first paragraph, if we want to recall, it says healing and atonement are not related. They are identical. Not related. They are identical. There is no order of difficulty in miracles because there are no degrees of atonement. There's no degrees of awakening. No degrees of salvation. It's 0 or 100, nothing in between. So, and so when obviously accepting the atonement is accepting the healing and being a healed mind. So, so this is a simple thing, right? Simple thing. But boy, have I made it difficult. Uh, so who would like to read paragraph 3? Brooklyn, please go right ahead.
Namaste, mighty companions. That forgiveness is healing needs to be understood if the teacher of God is to progress. The idea that a body can be sick is a central concept in the ego's thought system. This thought gives the body autonomy, separates it from the mind, and keeps the idea of attack inviolate. If the body could be sick, atonement would be impossible. A body that can order a mind to do as it sees fit could merely take the place of God and prove salvation is impossible. What then is left to heal? The body has become Lord of the mind. How could the body be returned to the Holy Spirit unless the body is killed? And who would want salvation at such a price? I love to read this. Of course, this reminds me of something that's happening now. And, I have a chronic condition. I have colitis. And I've gotten used to it. I've accepted it. And, I figure, well, maybe it's time I get a checkup and everything, So I go to the gastro yesterday, and she's amazed that I'm comfortable with this. I've accepted it. And fortunately, my lifestyle, fits with it. But I just want to, it's kind of like things happen, but I know I love my body. My body's gone through a lot of experiences for me, and now I'm going to take care of it. I'm not going to think of the body as sick, but just if the body needs attention, I'm going to give it attention. Of course, now my body is only used for love. And so I'm going to get that colonoscopy. And I was thinking, but I got to drink all that stuff. Is that going to harm my body? But anyway, I will, get flack.
Yeah, it's and it's because it's a body. It's just neutral. Mm-hmm. That's what we when you look at it and say this body has no meaning. It's just a neutral thing. It's just like this pencil or anything. It's not good or bad. It just is. Chapstick or not. Maybe it's empty. Might not be good, but it in itself is not good or bad. It just is. The body is the same way. Not good or bad. Not healthy or sick. It just is. Mm-hmm. Karen, please go ahead.
Thanks for sharing that, Lynn. I love the respect you have for your body and the way you're taking care of your body and accepting it where it's at, no matter what. And that is so beautiful. I sometimes still have a hard time with that. And I admire that. And that encourages me. So that's beautiful, really. Because what can we do, And in this paragraph, I like where he says that forgiveness is healing. Forgiveness is healing. That needs to be understood. And he also says that right-mindedness is healing, and that all healing is a release from fear. So we're healing our mind from the fear of, what our body goes through. It's not the truth of who we are. It's just an experience. Like you said, it's just an experience we're having, and when I can look at that and just honor the experience, and know that things are never going to stay the same. It's changing all the time. It's going to change all the time. I have a choice, how am I going to look at this? Forgiveness is healing. Right-mindedness is healing. The Holy Spirit shows me how I can use my body in a purposeful way. Like you said, it's for love, to extend love, to love myself, and love where I'm at. And I really needed to hear that because I still do struggle with that sometimes. So it's not always easy for me. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Karen. That is, it really is just a matter of acceptance. And that's, I think, been the thing for me. I know I have I've had people who've been around me for a while know I must be really accident prone, because I've had some pretty doozy accidents over the years. And I don't know, I don't know why, but because of that, I have a lot of, like, when I was like 17, I got hit by a car and it pretty much crushed my leg from the knee down, my left leg. Although, I still walk around on it and it's fine, but I get aches and pains. I had an accident and I broke my knee, and my knee hurts, and I broke my shoulder hurts, and I lost my eye, went blind in one eye, and all these things. And if I sat around and thought about, well, gee, this is a terrible thing. Now I can't be a ballerina. I always wanted to be a ballerina, and I'm not going to ever be a ballerina now because, my knees and legs are all beat up, or, whatever. It's not there. It's just the parts that got, busted up, and now they're working the way they work. But I noticed last night, one thing that I do have a lot of, not a lot of issues, but some issue with, is that, and probably a lot of other people do have, like restless legs when you're trying to go to sleep and your legs, twitch, and you need to move them and you want to move them and they move around, and when I went for a sleep study, the guy told me, I've never seen anybody's legs move like yours. He said, you have the loudest snorer I ever heard. And the most restless legs I ever saw. This was a guy who ran a sleep clinic. He said he never heard anybody snore as loud as I did. Which I guess my husband's right. I just think he's exaggerating, but apparently not. But anyway, so I was trying to go to sleep last night, and my legs are twitching, and I'm laying there and I'm thinking, so what's wrong with that? Why am I upset about that? Why am I even paying attention to that? There's a lot of other things I could be paying attention to my body. I could be paying attention to how my shoulder aches, right? I could be paying attention to how comfortable I feel with this pillow. I could be paying attention to a lot of stuff, but I'm focusing on this thing that seems to be wrong. And I analyzed the feelings in my legs. I just went and looked at and analyzed the feelings in my legs, and I realized that it was really nothing. There was no reason I should be upset or nervous or anything about it. Just, it's nothing. And right when I figured that out, it stopped bothering me. They still were probably twitching. I don't care, because I didn't, it was out of my thinking, no more part of my experience. And I guess, the reason I'm saying this is because you can let your body be an impediment to you and worry about all the things that don't work right, and focus on the stuff that's bothering you. But it's nothing. That's if I mean, I keep saying it's nothing, but really it is. The mind is capable of everything. And why I would let my ego, my body, direct me and upset me when I can just tell it, shut up. And I think that's what you do too, Brooklyn. I mean, you're talking about your condition. You're just basically saying, hey, I'm not going to pay attention to you because I won't allow it. It's just the way you are. So that's beautiful. Thank you. Karen, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Lynn, because for me, that's what helps me, and using that as a practice. It's like my body's a spiritual practice, because it allows me to notice when I'm feeling these, and I like to call them sensations now. I like that sensations word better, because it's I don't have to use the word pain or suffering or anything like that. So, and it's not ever suffering, but then it allows me to notice it, and then to bring the awareness back to my mind. Like you were saying, that's where the problem is. The way I'm thinking about it, my thoughts about it, it's what's causing the pain is the thoughts. So changing my thoughts and not making it such a big deal, and not taking it seriously. But in the section in the workbook, What is the Body, says exactly what Lynn Brooklyn said. Basically, he says that your safety lies in truth and not in lies. Love is your safety. Fear does not exist. Identify with love and you are safe. Identify with love and you are home. Identify with love and find your capital S self. So when I can love even what's happening that's uncomfortable, and just know that it's just another experience, and it's a call for love is what it is. So thank you. It's very helpful. Remember those things. Thank you.
That's great teaching. Thank you so much, Karen.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's beautiful. And yeah, I know when I had my accident and I hurt my knee, something that really, because at that time I was a Course in Miracles student, so I was really looking at, my relationship with the body throughout all of that. And what I noticed, when I would have pain, I would take a pain pill, and I was meditating one day when I had taken this pain pill, and I thought, where's that pain pill going? Is it going to my knee and doing something to my knee to change my knee so that my knee is not hurting anymore? Or is it going to my brain and telling something in my brain to stop paying attention to the knee? When I realized that's exactly what was happening, is that all the pain pill is doing is going to the brain and turning off that signal, or telling that thing to stop. And I thought, well, is it possible I could do that my own self without having to take a drug? And so I did. That's exactly what just like when I had my babies and went in labor and all that, and didn't have, pain, because I put myself into a state of mind where I was not connected to my body. And that was before I even studied, of course, and that's back in the 70s. But it's all in your mind. So that's where that's where the work has to happen, the mind, not the body. Rafi, please go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't echo that more strongly. There are two ways to approach it. One is, well, I'm not this body. It came here to do whatever it's going to do. Let it do it. It's got nothing to do with me. I just got to love it and let it do its thing. The other approach to it is that everything here is serving our cause for, as you call it, atonement. But and so the body is doing the same thing. It's saying the mind is generating something. It's reflecting it into the body. So you can take a look at it and go, wait a minute, there's something here I have to address. And because every moment has been, genuinely and perfectly designed for our benefit. So that has to be something that can work for me. And you go inside and find out what that negative, non-loving feeling or a belief or approach or a program is, and get rid of it. And what happens to the body is that all of a sudden there is no pain, or there is no suffering, there is no ache, there is no whatever the symptom is gone. And what always worked for me was, I love my body, I love my mind, I love my ego, and I love myself. And because love is what's real. And it's just like that lady said, everything reflects back to the truth of our love. And if you go there, what greater power could you have? Thank you.
Thank you, Rafi. Yeah, I mean, we are all powerful. And yes, I can tell you with no hesitation that if you're in enough pain, or you can't catch a hold of yourself to be able to do anything like that, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a pain pill, or an ibuprofen or Tylenol. I do it all the time. Not saying that it's good because I do it all the time. Just saying there's nothing wrong with it. Just know that we have a capability of a lot more than what we're able to project or experience now. Nicole, please go ahead. Hi, sweetheart.
Hi. Oh, this is just really hitting me. Especially because I went and saw a Balinese healer this week. He's been pretty matter of fact here. The idea that a body can be sick is a central concept in the ego's thought system, right? This thought gives the body autonomy. So this idea, like as we go along, like, we're used to making interpretations or judgments based on the witnesses, based on our experiences, okay? But he's calling us and asking us to remember the truth which we experience only really, truly in holy instance and revelation. And that is that it is not a body. Atonement and healing are one and the same. It's one. It's the light of God. It's all connected. It's all one. This body, we can call it a body, sorry, one of my hands isn't free in those little thingies. We can call it a body, but it's not. It's one. And my revelation of oneness, that's what I saw. It was one. Like it's raining on the roof. Next thing, it's raining inside me. I am that rain, but it's God, and all is one. And all that we call a world, all that we consider to be physical, is just purely the light of God. It's God. It's one. It's light. And this reminder now, especially when I have been tempted to believe this exact same thing, this is talking directly to me, what I'm reading here. And thank you for helping me to see the beginning again, because that was perfect. It is not a body. So while it may seem that, right, just to be aware this is not real, it's an illusion, it's not true, not to judge ourselves, not to see it as wrong. It's all innocent, every illusion, and it's just pure innocent mistake, mistaken belief, perception, and to love it all because it is one. And what is atonement? Atonement is about bringing all into the circle and loving it all. And that includes our errors, including our mistakes, and just, letting it go and giving it to the atonement. So if any symptoms are persisting, rather than us seeing that as giving witness or testimony that there must be more going on, there's some reason the body can be sick, or there's some reason the body can experience this, just that call to faith, to trust, to take that leap of faith and just really trust that regardless of how things seem, regardless of the witnesses, regardless of all that it's not real. It isn't real. It's not true. It is one. It is the light of God. God is in everything I see. And this here is not separate from God. This here is not separate. It is one. It is the light of God, and it is one. Thank you. Yeah.
Nice teaching, Nicole.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Nicole. And wow, yeah, Bali's doing you good. But you were always mystical like that. I can always expect to hear something beautiful when Nicole raises her hand. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Does anybody else
Suksama.
have... Yes.
Suksama. That thank you.
Ah.
Suksama.
So yeah, once we recognize that we're not this body, and this body is not the sum of what we are. In fact, this body couldn't hold what we are. I mean, imagine what we are is vast. And I had an experience, a kind of revelatory experience, I think one time, well, more than one time, but this one in particular, I experienced myself as something really vast and huge and expanded, like that meditation that we did the other day, just expanded and vast and huge and just beyond, it was just shocking to me how huge I am. That's why I make that joke, the stars, they're tiny, I'm gigantic. Because really, that's the truth. But anyway, just the silliness of thinking that, if we have any inkling of what we truly are, the silliness of imagining that it could fit into this thing, or even this world, or even this universe, it's just crazy. There's no way. What we are is something far beyond that. And I know Regis was talking earlier today. This is something that reminded me of what you were saying earlier, talking about the threat to the body of death. That's kind of the ultimate thing that the body has, is like, well, if you don't pay attention to me, you're gonna die, and and when he says, how could the mind be returned to the Holy Spirit unless the body is killed? That's what the ego tells you. The body has to be killed in order for you to return to God. Well, no, no killing is necessary. No sacrifice is necessary. We're not being asked to give up everything. We're not being asked we're not being asked to do anything. There's no giving up of anything. We're being asked to accept everything. That's what we're being asked to. We're not being asked to forget things. We're being asked to accept everything. And that's a whole different picture than the picture of, I have to give up my body and my family and my children. Your children are inside of you. They'll be there. They are wherever you are always. Everything is wherever when you accept that you are the allness, you have everything and nothing is lost. Sharon, please go ahead.
I forget what I was going to say. I was going to say, but it was something great that you said, Lynn, and I just let me just stick with it. If I was back, I'll let you know.
Okay, you're sounding bubbly. Are you guys hearing Sharon right?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound like you're underwater.
Okay, there's something wrong with the computer. I'll come back on.
Yeah, maybe check the plug for your microphone, or I don't know. I'm no computer technician. What am I telling you? Anyway, thank you, Sharon, for attempting to share. Does anybody else want to share here before we move on to the next paragraph?
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so since you brought it up,
Since
but
I brought it up.
as you was talking about the death aspect, and like you say, that conversation can be so deep and so wide. But it just came up, like just say I have diabetes or cancer, whatever, and then I leave the body, and well, it's like, oh, he lost the fight with cancer, or he lost the fight with diabetes, but and that's why, like, in me, it just came up for me a few weeks back. It's just like death is not a punishment, because this world subliminally teaches us a lot of stuff that it just don't literally come out and say, but we just kind of pick it up by the way people respond and the reactions and what's said in our Western civilization. And so these concepts become a part of what we think is true. It's like, oh, I wasn't in a battle with cancer. I didn't lose a fight with cancer. Death didn't win anything over me. So it's like just undoing some of those mindsets. And Lynn Brooklyn started us out talking about loving those illnesses. But one thing I wanted to point out about that is I will piggyback on that. Love is really broad. It's like, what does that really mean? Love it. And I thought about something that I learned through the NTI, the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament, that came through Regina Acres. And it was the only place in all of my history that I ever heard love described this way. But one of the descriptions that it gave for love is welcome. So when you can welcome it, you know, because that to say love it, somebody will love it like I love my wife, love it. What do I mean, love it? But to welcome it, because what you resist persists. Because if I'm not welcoming it, I'm resisting it, and the story is getting bigger and bigger as I stay in that place of resistance. So for me, it's helpful in this context to identify love in that characteristic as welcome. And that may be helpful to somebody else as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Regis. Yeah, that absolutely. Love is welcome is a beautiful way of putting it. Yeah, welcome everything and love everything. And that's, I know Regina does a lot of that, the loving all method that Michael, what's his name, gave to her, which is good. Loving, I mean, if you just practice loving everything, it would definitely shift your life. Dub, please go ahead, and then Karen, and then Sharon. Maybe she remembered, write it down. Dub, go ahead.
All right. Yeah. When Regis was talking about somebody losing the fight with whatever, I was thinking about when I was diagnosed with cancer in 2013. So, you know, the woman across the hall from me, she works at the Sloan Kettering Cancer in New York. And she said, you know, David, you're very strong. You can fight this. You know, you can definitely fight it. You're strong. Remember that. Meanwhile, if you're listening to Marianne Williamson, she's saying, love your cancer, love your cancer. So I'm saying, what do I do? What do I do? So as it happened, Regina, that's the time Regina flew everybody out to Pueblo. That is when I met you out in Colorado. And that Saturday night, I got to sit down right next to Dr. Brent Haskell from Journey Beyond Words. And of course, he's an MD or a DO, you know, he's an MD. So I said, you know, Marianne says to love my cancer. This woman at Sloan Kettering tells me to fight my cancer. What do you say? And Brent Haskell said, I definitely agree with Marianne. Love your cancer. Now, what is love your cancer? Because, you know, it's not about loving your, you know, thinking of your cancer cells and loving them. It's about accepting. It's about accepting. It's not contracting. It's not going into fear. It's, you know, I'm not fighting. I'm in acceptance. That's loving. That's loving is accepting. And it shows up when you're in the hospital and they're taking care of you. You're loving the doctors. You're loving the nurses. You're loving people.
Yeah, that was an amazing time. We've had some amazing situations since I've known you, Dove. But yeah, that whole time when you had cancer, you know, I got to admit that I went into some fear about that, because, well, why do I have to say because? You know why? But you know, that the miracles that came because of that, and there were lots of miracles that came out of your cancer diagnosis, and a lot of beautiful things that happened because of it. And I learned a lot from that as well. So you know, it's just and you know, I think just, yeah, loving everything, even if it seems like it's not killing you, because it's a part of you. There's nothing that's separate from you. So your cancer is no more part of you or less part of you than, you know, your desk or your chair. You know, it's all part of you. So, you know, love it. Karen, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Dove, and thank you, Regis. I could relate to everything. What Regis shared about the undoing, that's that's why atonement and healing are identical, because they undo the guilt. And the guilt is the sickness. That's the sickness, is the guilt. Feeling guilty about anything is the sickness. Because like Dove said, it's always about accepting and letting all things be exactly as they are, because they're here to teach us. You know, my body is my teacher. It's teaching me. And recently I was listening to, it's an old interview on Buddha on the gas pump, Buddha at the gas pump, an interview with a guy named Rob Schwartz. He's a medium, and he's also, he deals with pre-life planning, pre-birth planning. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of pre-birth planning, but it's in line with what the Course talks about. The script is written. Before you're born, he talks about how we meet with spiritual guides before we're born, and we choose our scripts. We pick the script. We pick this, everything that we go through in this life, we chose, you know, and it's so interesting. It's so interesting. I want to make an appointment with this guy. I think it's so cool. But it's undoing the guilt, and it's undoing all of it. You know, it's like, it's all unreal, all of it. And the Course, the first step in undoing is to recognize that you have actively decided wrongly. That's the first step, to notice and to recognize that I have actively decided wrongly, because I actively decided to choose that the body can be sick. You know, it's the idea that the body can be sick is the central concept in the ego thought system. This thought gives the body autonomy and separates it from the mind. And that's where the idea of attack comes in. You know, I'm attacking myself. So the undoing is the hugest, I think, for me, the hugest part of it is undoing that guilt. And that's what the atonement and healing and forgiveness, they're all the same, and they all help us with that. So I'm loving it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Karen. That kind of reminds me of the teaching gave two Tuesdays ago. I chose to be unhappy. Going in, and then I picked a family and the circumstances that made it very possible for me to be unhappy for a lot of my life.
Yeah, and remember Buddha Betty, little Betty Guadano, is that her name is?
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
on John Mundy. That's exactly what she said when she had her near-death experience, was that they showed her that how she had planned stuff in her life that just seemed really crazy. But, you know, I know the same thing with me too. And it's really interesting because thank you for bringing that up, Karen, because I haven't listened to that interview, but I will play it. And, you know, Rick doesn't care. We can play his Buddha at the gas pump interviews on Gather, because they're public domain. They're in they're on YouTube. But anyway, on Sundays, Zita Schmidt, who is out in she's somewhere in the Bay Area, San Francisco. She comes in and she reads these books. She's been reading these books by a doctor who he hypnotizes people and regresses them. And they get regressed to, a lot of times people go back to their former life and talk about, you know, their former life before they came here and where they lived. And, you know, it's really interesting. And there's a lot of other overflow with that. And this Sunday, we're going to talk about the section that have we read it yet? Is Reincarnation Real? It's in the manual for teachers here. Because the whole idea that we're living in every possible reality. When we had the tiny mad idea and had this and made this world, basically, we made if you can imagine it, it's here, because you cannot imagine anything new. We cannot make anything, you know, God, Jesus tells us that God, he restricted our ability to miscreate. So, you know, we can't make new stuff now. We made everything that could ever be made. So any lifetime that you've ever had, any lifetime anybody's ever had, any world that could possibly, if you can imagine an alien world, it's there. You made it. We made it. We can't imagine anything new that wasn't imagined at that instant of the tiny mad idea. So all we have to do is recognize that um, nothing new is happening, and maybe something in a past life, if we remember it, or something else that we may remember, could possibly, like I just read a thing today, Laura Lentz, who's on Facebook, and she was talking about her grandson, I believe, was saying that he remembered when his sister got married. They were small children, and he said, "Oh, I remember her wedding, and I remember, and it was all fancy." And she's like, "Well, how do you remember that?" He says, "Oh, it wasn't now; it was back then." And what reminded him was that he found a plastic fork that was gold, and he remembered that all the stuff at the wedding was gold. And so he tells her a whole story about his little sister, like they're like 7 and 5 years old, tells her all about her wedding, and he was there. He remembered, and that's what, kids, after a certain age, they stop remembering those things. But up to a certain age, you can remember things from past lives. And I've seen so many and heard so many examples of it, seen so many examples of it. The only way that it could possibly be real and fit in the constraints of the Course of Miracles is if there are like multitudes of concurrent universes. Like right now, we're in the midst of multiples of our being, and we're experiencing all the experiences that we wanted to experience when we had the tiny mad idea. That's the whole point of it. And we can do that forever and ever if we want to, but we can't, because God is not going to let us do this forever. We're gonna come out of it and remember who we are and forget about the past and find somebody new. Anyway, rambling on. Karen, please go ahead.
That sounds interesting, Lynn. Is Zita on YouTube too, or her teachings on YouTube?
Not yet, because
Okay.
I just started the YouTube, but
Okay.
I'm going to do something with him so that I can make him available, because yeah, it's really fascinating stuff.
I would love to hear her. She's on Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday morning at is it? I guess
She's on at 1 o'clock, I think.
1 o'clock. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted to share something that that Dove brought up about accepting. And this is something that is helpful for all of us to accept all things exactly as they are all the time, especially when things like I heard this morning, Ken Wapnick was sharing. I love this story, and you probably heard it this morning if you were listening to him. He shared that when he was living in, I think it was somewhere in New York. I'm not sure if it was Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
Was it Brooklyn? Was it Brooklyn? Yeah. Okay. He was living in Brooklyn, and it was a hot night. Did you hear the story, Dove?
Of course I know the story, yeah.
I love the story. The story's great. He was living in Brooklyn. It was a hot night, and he left the window open, and it was near I think it was near the what's that called, Dove? The when you go up that ladder, that the fire escape or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you go up the fire escape. Yeah, so he left the window open near the fire escape because it was hot, and he had to open the window, and he didn't think about it, and he went to bed. Well, he woke up, and there was this guy standing at his bed, and he said he had his hand in his pocket like he had a gun. And Ken was so cool, calm, and collected, just accepting everything as perfect. He just got up and looked at the guy and said, and knew just by looking at him, because he knew Brooklyn, he knew how things were there. And the guy definitely was a drug addict, needed drugs, and wanted money. And Ken said, "What do you need?" And he said, "Give me all your money." So Ken gave him everything that was in his wallet. And it was like, Ken also was just the whole time, never flinched, never got upset, never was scared, accepted what was happening as perfect. I love the story, the way he told it. And then he said, "What else can I do for you? What else do you need?" And the guy said, "Do me a favor." He said, "Pray for me." And Ken said, "All right." And then Ken said, "I walked him to the door, and then I let him out, and I prayed for him, but it was just beautiful. I'm not saying it as good as Ken said it, but it's just accepting that moment, as scary as that must have been. You know, he said, I don't even know if the guy had a gun or not, but he seemed like he had a gun the way he had his hand in his pocket. But just by accepting it and relaxing into it, right? It passed. And the guy actually, you know, didn't hurt Ken, didn't do anything, took the money and asked him to pray for him, you know? So I just thought it was a beautiful story. I probably didn't even say it half as good as Ken, but you get the drift.
Thank you. Beautiful story.
That is a
Actually,
beautiful story.
Yeah, actually you did, Karen. You told exactly the story that I heard this morning. Exactly what he said. And I was like, I wish you would tell more of those stories, because it happened to him organically. He didn't have to do anything. If you listen to Ken, and all of us have listened to him for years, I mean, he never would talk about being enlightened or whether he had an ego. That wasn't an issue for him. But acceptance. Now, that is what I was going to say before when I had to get off the bigger computer because you couldn't hear me. Acceptance is love. Acceptance is love. And I mean anything, like even if you're in the ego and you make a total ass out of yourself, accept it. You accept it, you have then welcomed it. Acceptance is welcoming. And what I feel that our ego does is it pushes against everything. And then, you know, of course, we believe ego and then we do that. So it's just a matter of acceptance. Yeah, I just love that story, Karen. Thanks for sharing it. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. Thank you too. And yeah, it reminds me also of the story that Byron Katie tells about a guy came up to her and put a gun in her, like in her belly, and she realized, you know, that I mean, she realized that she could not let him hurt himself by killing her. She didn't care about being killed, but she was concerned about that what it would do to him to have done that. And so she was able to talk to him and work with him and get him, you know, obviously she was very calm and composed because, you know, her job was not to be a frightened victim. Her job was to share the light. And she recognized that you know, the only purpose of this guy even being here was for her to share the light with, you know, I mean, that's not her words, but that's basically what it was, that, you know, he then was set free from something that had been really hurting him because he, you know, he was not allowed to do something that could have destroyed his life. Could have killed her, but could have destroyed his life too. And that's what I think about when I'm around people now. Lesson that I learned from Byron Katie really put me to thinking about the effect of my interactions and with other people and my judgments of them and my appreciation of them, my loving them and not wanting them to hurt themselves or to be hurt or to be afraid, or not for me not to do anything that would make them afraid or make them worried or make them, you know, I mean, really it's my responsibility to be with other people, a peacemaker, a peaceful person and a peacemaker. And I think that's pretty much my, you know, something that I really believe in and want to focus on. And so Karen, please go ahead, and Sharon's right after.
That's a beautiful story. I never heard that story before, Lynn. Thank you for sharing that. And that forgiveness is healing needs to be understood if the teacher of God is to make progress. This is forgiveness. This is undoing. This is seeing the truth in your brother. And I have one other story that actually a friend in the course told me years ago, and I never forgot it. She and her friends were at a wedding and they were in their car. I forget why. They went back to their car for something, and their husbands were in the wedding and whatever, in the dining area or whatever. Anyway, they were in the car and these two guys came up to the car with guns, and the guy put a gun right to her head, and she was sitting in her car. The guy put a gun right to her head and the other guy took her friend and was going to rape her. They pulled her out of the car and was going to rape her. And she said, it just came to her, and she said, the Christ in me sees the Christ in you. She looked right in his eyes and said, the Christ in me sees the Christ in you. The Christ, she just kept saying it over and over. The Christ in me sees the Christ in you. And don't you know, this guy, it just did something to him. It just changed everything. And he said to the guy who was just about to rape this girl, her girlfriend, said, come on, we got to go. We got to go. We're going to get busted or something, you know? And they took off. And it was just, wow, you know, just that power of seeing the truth in him. It did something to him. It changed the whole game. And it was just beautiful, beautiful story. I never forgot it.
That is really a beautiful story. And the next section, when we get to that, is about using the name of Jesus, which is pretty danged amazing. It's even in this book. But I use Jesus all the time, or the Christ. To me, it's the same. And I use it all the time. And it's very powerful. Please go ahead, Sharon.
Well, I just want to say, the way you handle the room, every night that I see you, Lynn, you are just, and I've known you for years, but you're so consistently loving. It's like everyone in this group is, but the fact that you're kind of leading the group, I just want to say from all of us, thank you. That's how we all feel.
Sharon.
Yeah, you have literally made this every bit as beautiful as I always wanted it to. I'm not saying it always wasn't, but it's different. It's just it's a beautiful community. So thank you. I'm so happy that because, you know, if anyone deserves to hear this, it's you, Lynn. You have a heart that is just always there. It's beautiful. I just love all of you. That's all.
Well, you know, what you see is what you are.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's, you know, back right at you. It's the same thing. You wouldn't recognize it if it wasn't coming out of you too. So that's what's so beautiful about this. Yeah, you know, I know when we first started back ACIM Gather, after we went over to Awakening Together for a while, that's a little story. But there was some questions about you know, how are we going to have this room? Because previously there were some contention. There was arguments and lots of interesting discussions that went on in the Gather room. And Regis will tell you, and Sharon too, but please don't. And Nicole, please don't. But that was the question that we had. Can we do this, and can we keep it peaceful? And I said, that's my only intention. So, you know, today our reading is setting the goal. My goal was to be in peace and to have a peaceful place for people to join. And that's everything. I put my whole energy into doing that. Peaceful room, peaceful family, peaceful group, and that everyone can share. Everyone is equal. That was my intention. And I'll swear to God, that's what it is. That's how I see it.
Well, I think it's the Holy Spirit, really. I think the Holy Spirit just said, okay, you know, because I was happy in other places, but not like this. And again, now I am comparing, so maybe I'm coming from the wrong mind, but there is a feeling, I think energy, it's just energy. I think Holy Spirit puts us exactly where we need to be at the exact time. That's what it is. Exactly. But I was ready just for consistent. The kindness that I see in this group is absolutely extraordinary. And that's all we need to be. A teacher of God is kind. That's it. You don't need anything else. Who cares what acceptance means if you're in the ego, so what? So what if you have a bad day? Everything is okay. We're all in this together, like Dub says. Anyway.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And that's the beauty of it, is that we're here for a purpose, and we all have the same goal. That makes what this is a holy relationship. Holy relationship is a relationship where you share the purpose, and that's what we do here. And I'm so grateful. And looks like our time is about up, so we get through one paragraph today, and we will get through the rest of this next week. She says, so glad, because look, this is so rich. This is like the whole Course in Miracles. Just as one paragraph. That's what I'm seeing every time. It's so holographic. It's the same. It's like the whole course is just right here. And all we got to do is be happy, as George Harrison says. All right.
Bye,
you
Robin. Bye.
Everyone, love you. Thank you,
Love
Lynn.
you.
Mwah.
Bye.
Mwah.
Bye.
Love us.
All right. We'll see you
Bye.
next week. We'll see you. Bye. Maybe
Big
see you on
hugs.
Saturday.